T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in on this beautiful Monday morning. Happy New Year. It is a great day to start 2024. We have a lot of exciting college football games today, and that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about. We're also going to look back at some of the games that we've already gone through in the bowl season, and we have a lot to talk about across the board. It's going to be a great episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. Nick is a little hungover. Slade is at work, so I'm here to get you guys prepared for the college football semifinals today. There's some other bowl games going on, and as I said, we're going to look back at a few as well. If you look at the bottom, we have the updated scoreboard for all the final scores for every bowl game up to today. So make sure you guys check that out, see where your favorite teams have landed, where your conference opponents have landed, so on and so forth. Um, if we're going to look back, there's definitely one game that I think we need to talk about first, and it's been the talk of the college football world ever since this game occurred, and that is the Orange Bowl between Florida State and Georgia. Um, when the final playoff rankings came out, obviously Florida State got spurned. Georgia kind of felt like they were spurned as well. But the heaviest debate was between Alabama and Florida State. And I was in the boat, and I'm still in the boat that I believe Florida State should have still made it. Um, and again, I understand it goes back to the conversation of, well, most deserving versus the best teams. And I'll say this one final time: um, giving me your argument for who you think the best team is really relative. It's very subjective, and therefore it turns into the argument of who you think the most deserving team is. Because there are results on the field. Up until this game, Florida State was undefeated, so on and so forth. We don't need to go into the entire resume again. Mainly, what I want to talk about is everything that led up to this game, everything that happened in this game, and kind of the aftermath that we're seeing now. So leading up to the game, obviously, Florida State had a ton of opt-outs. They were very discouraged by the fact that they didn't get the chance to go into the playoffs undefeated, Power Five champions, so on and so forth. Um, I do not blame the young men for opting out of playing in this game. Especially a lot of them have very bright futures ahead of them heading to the NFL. This was a very talented Florida State team across the board. I do not blame them for opting out, especially in the world that we live in college football. I understand a lot of people are now starting to point the finger at Florida State and Mike Norvell, especially saying, "Well, this is definitely a culture problem." Because if you look at Georgia, again, Georgia felt very slighted. They thought that they still should have been in the college football playoff. They were the number one team. They lose by 3 points on a neutral site in an SEC championship game, and they fall from one all the way down to five. Excuse me, they fell from one to six. And they really felt like they didn't deserve that, and they should have been kept in the college football playoff. So you have two teams feeling kind of the same way, and you saw two very different reactions. And Florida State, a lot of players said, "What's the point now? We're just gonna opt out. We're gonna get ready to go to the NFL draft. We're gonna hit the portal, so on and so forth." Georgia, they did have some opt outs. They did have some guys hit the transfer portal. But for the majority of their starters, definitely stuck around. I would say the only big name starter that opted out was Brock Bowers. Um, but again, everybody's kind of pointing at Mike Norvell saying, "Well, this is a culture issue. If you can't, keep your team in line, get them focused on a huge goal ahead of them." Because again, they had a lot of public sympathy on their side. They had a lot of people come out saying, "Well, if they win this game, they can still claim the national championship. We can still crown them that, so on and so forth." Um, and in the eyes of the public now, it seems like the team just kind of quit because of everything that happened. I'm not pointing my finger at Mike Norvell. I think he is a great coach. I think it's very difficult to get, and this is obviously with Georgia, Alabama. and the very top tier programs do the best is they get these kids to buy in at another level. And again, like I said, Georgia, yeah, they had some opt outs, they had some transfer portal guys, but for the most part, this team bought in. They wanted to go out and prove that, hey, we should have been in the playoffs still. Florida State had the chance to do that. And again, I don't blame these kids for protecting their future interest and getting ready for the NFL, so on and so forth. When in all reality, it kind of feels like a meaningless game at this point. Well, maybe if we win, maybe we can claim a national championship, so on and so forth. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm not blaming Mike Norvell for this. I still think he's a great coach. He still has a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. But I don't in any way, shape, or form feel like this is Mike Norvell's fault. Um, Looking at the broad scheme of things, and obviously the debate now is turned to, well, look at what college football is becoming, especially in the bowl season, because so many players opt out, and it is a huge issue, and it's right along the side of the issue that other people see. That is, there are too many bowl games in some people's eyes, and while and I've said this before, I understand that argument. I don't believe that's true. I mean, I love as much football as you can possibly hand me, especially college football. I think we've had a lot of really great bowl games so far this year. There have absolutely been some duds. Looking at the 68 Ventures Bowl, that's obviously the key one, the 6 out 59-10. The Orange Bowl as well, 63-3. I think overall there could have been better scheduling with these bowls, better matchups. As great of a storyline as it was to have Florida State and Georgia, I mean, fine. Yeah, you can keep that matchup. Some of the other New Year's Six bowl games, Ole Miss and Penn State, um, that matchup didn't really thrill me. It was still turned out to be a pretty decent game. Also, looking at the Cotton Bowl, mainly what I'm looking at here is the fact that you had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, actually all the way down to 11, and then the other spot went to Liberty, who was 23. So I mean, you had 5 and 6 in the Orange Bowl. Why not just do 6 and 7 in another game, 7 and 8, so on and so forth? Um, uh, Regardless, there could have been better matchups. Um, but the solution I proposed when we did our Swear Jar Sweat, and I also put this video out on TikTok as well, and I kind of went more in depth with it. It broke it down a lot farther. And I think this is a solution to one, keep a lot of these opt outs from happening, and two, reduce the number of bowl games a little bit, but also make them a lot more meaningful. Um, so going into the 12 team playoff next year, I really feel like if you're a Power Five program and you miss out on that chance to get into the 12 team playoff, your season is essentially over with anyway. If you get put into a bowl game, that's where we're going to see a Florida State situation where a bunch of your players who are NFL ready, or they want to go to a different school, they're going to opt out anyway or transfer, so on and so forth. Excuse me. Um, so if you don't make the 12 team playoff, you don't get a bowl game, period. If you're a Power Five team. Looking at the Group of Five team, obviously, as of right now, one representative, the highest ranked Group of Five team, is going to make the 12 team playoff next year. But if we look at everything else, I think the best way to go about it and create more meaningful games and reduce this number of games a little bit, is almost make it like an NIT style round robin. It doesn't necessarily need to be another playoff or anything like that. But you take the top four teams out of every group of five conference, and they just play a round robin. Every conference plays every conference, and you go through. If your conference ends up with the most wins, the conference as a whole gets a reward for every team that wins a bowl game. They get a nice reward as well, whether it be money for their NIL, so on and so forth. Um, and again, I think that goes back to, let's create some more meaningful games. Let's keep around some of these really fun games we have. Like the Pop Tarts Bowl was one of the most fun bowl games I think we've had in a very long time. And so let's keep very fun environments like that around, but, we don't necessarily need a 68 Ventures Bowl, and stuff like that. Um, we don't need a 3 bowl games in baseball stadiums. I mean, I know some people enjoy that, I don't, I think it's really dumb. That's just me. But regardless, going back to Florida State and Georgia, I still stand by the fact I think Florida State should have been in the playoffs, but that's just my opinion. I don't The result of that game didn't deter me from that viewpoint at all. But I still feel like bowl season as a whole could be handled better. We can go forward in a better direction, and with the amount of head coaches calling for change, Kirby Smart pretty much made his entire post game press conference about, this was just very sad to see. This is a horrible situation. We need to make changes going forward. It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward and if any changes are brought up or pushed through, especially going to this 12-team playoff next year. Kind of how everything's going to unfold and go down from there. Um, but still, one last time, just to reiterate, I still think Florida State should have made it. It was very disheartening to see. And again, while I understand why they did it, and I'm not judging them for doing it, it's still disheartening to see essentially players kind of quit on the team when you still have a lot in front of you. It still would have been very, it would have been a huge marquee win for this program to be able to go into the Orange Bowl, possibly upset Georgia, at least make it a little bit better of a game. And then from there, who knows what happens if you do pull off the win. Maybe you do get to claim a national championship, something like that, so on and so forth. But still, that sucked to see regardless. That's not what you want to see happen during bowl season. Bowl season is supposed to be about these great games, celebrating teams that have gotten to this point. And that's the Orange Bowl was the complete opposite of that. Where one team was excited to be there, the other team was just like, well, we're not in the playoffs. This doesn't really matter to us, so on and so forth. So that was disheartening to see. But there were still some great bowl games that has happened this past year. So I'm going to give you my picks for my favorite bowl game so far. First up, the game itself was pretty good. It wasn't over the top, but I mean the Pop Tarts Bowl has to be on there. The marketing that Pop Tarts put into that, and everything that happened. I believe Kellogg's owns Pop Tarts. But just the marketing behind all of that, and how all in they went, the entire show from unveiling the Pop Tart mascot to putting him in the toaster and bringing him out as an edible Pop Tart was hilarious to see. Um, some other good bowl games. First up, the Las Vegas Bowl wasn't very exciting. There was hardly any offense in that game at all. But watching Utah and Northwestern fight back and forth, Northwestern with everything they've gone through this season, getting a new head coach essentially right before the season starts, and the fact that they were able to get to bowl eligibility and then make a bowl game against a very good Power Five opponent and win that, they deserve a lot of credit for that. Some other good bowl games we had, Clemson and Kentucky, was a fantastic bowl game. If you missed that, Kentucky or excuse me, Clemson with a huge fourth quarter comeback, and then they scored the game-winning touchdown with about 17 seconds left. Um, Better than I thought that game was going to be. I thought Clemson was just going to manhandle Kentucky, but I kind of forgot how good Mark Stoops is as a head coach, and he got those guys ready for that game. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is the best bowl performances that we've seen from this year's bowl slate. I mean, obviously Georgia is up there, 63-3 victory. Maryland also looked very, very impressive. Kind of disheartening how the middle of their season went there after the Ohio State loss. They turn around, they lose to Indiana, a game that they should have won. They also lose to Northwestern, who, as we talked about, is a pretty good team, but still, you feel like that's a game and I said, Indiana, I meant Illinois. Um, so yeah, Maryland loses 3 straight or 4 straight actually, and then they get that bounce back against Nebraska. Um, but that middle stretch there, it was very disheartening to see. This was a team I thought because it could have easily gone 9-3, maybe been in contention for New Year's Six game. But it really seemed like that Ohio State loss where the first half felt like a game they could have won. And then they turn and they lose that game. They kind of stumble for the next couple of weeks. Um, if they're able to turn that around, if they can beat that Illinois team that again, I feel like they should have been able to. And Northwestern was a great game. If they're able to turn that around, who knows where their season ends up. But still, nonetheless, I think Maryland's trending in the right direction as a program. I'm excited to see where they go from here. Some other great performances. Notre Dame without their offensive coordinator. Their offense looked the best that it had all season. Defense played up to the standard that we saw. But their offense, without their offense coordinator, without most of their starters, Estimate didn't play, Hartman didn't play. Your 2 marquee players are sitting on the bench watching the game, and they go out and they put up what I feel like was their best offensive performance of the year outside of maybe the Navy game. Was very, very impressive to see, and that kinda speaks to how bad that offensive coordinator is. But now he's gonna take over Troy, so that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Also shout out to Boston College. They played a ranked team essentially at home, 4 miles from their stadium. But I was very harsh on Boston College this season. I didn't think they were gonna win more than 3 games. They make a bowl game. They're gonna play SMU. I'm very high on SMU. I said SMU was gonna smoke them. I took SMU to cover that spread, and they turn around and they win that game. So huge congratulations to Boston College for that. Um, and last but not least, all on December 27th. So this past Wednesday, three really great performances. Um, Virginia Tech 41-20 victory over Tulane. Again, a lot of people came into that game doubting Virginia Tech, very high on Tulane. And in the second half, especially Virginia Tech just pulled away. West Virginia demolishes UNC 30-10. They wanted that game more than UNC did. And then USC beats up on Louisville. We've obviously seen the issues with Louisville the second half of the season here. But USC, they put in their backup quarterback and he throws 6 touchdown passes. Just another level. And last one I wanted to mention is Arizona. This was the next day. 6 turnovers against Oklahoma. That was very impressive, especially kind of in Oklahoma's backyard. Alamo Bowl, they play there a lot. Brian Bosworth was there. And that was another great environment that you love to see. But Arizona, the way that they turn around their season, it started shaky. You know, Jed Fish, his seat's getting a little warm there the first couple weeks, and then out of nowhere they flipped that switch. They were in the running for the Pac-12 championship. If Oregon or Washington would have stumbled down the stretch, they were right there. They could have upset a very good Washington team if it wasn't for some late mistakes. Um, but nonetheless, Arizona is going to be a very scary team and a team that you need to watch for next year. I think as of right now, they're my favorites to win the Big 12. The way they just dismantled Oklahoma, I understand Oklahoma's missing some key pieces, but just the way Jed Fish has this team playing in Arizona, I think they can be one of the best teams in college football next year if they can continue that continuity. They have a very good quarterback in Fafita, who really blossomed this year, and played like one of the best quarterbacks. It's going to be very interesting to see how he continues to develop going forward, and that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So let's move in to today's semifinal games. The reason why we're going live this morning is to talk to you guys about these. Um, First up, we're going to talk about the Rose Bowl. I'm going to give you my keys to the game, what I think both teams need to do well for any chance to win this and punch their ticket to the national championship. And then we'll give you our picks for the game as well. So first up, first game for the semifinal today is going to be the Rose Bowl, 5 o'clock on ESPN. Alabama and Michigan. Keys to the game. Let's look at Michigan. You need to be more than one dimensional on offense. You need to have a run and pass game. They've been able to get away with it the past couple of weeks. You think back to the Penn State game is really when it started. Um, they can just run the ball behind Quorum, moves the ball. You know, they get touchdowns to eat up clock, so on and so forth. Alabama's way, way, way too good for you to be able to just be a one-dimensional offense and get away with it. They need JJ McCarthy to be at his absolute best today. You think back to the semifinal last year, that offense looked good, but then McCarthy would make mistakes. He threw 2 key interception, one of them being a pick six. Um, and so you need to be at your absolute best throwing the ball. This Alabama defense is going to be flying around. They're very good against the run. So you need to have a 1-2 punch. You can't be one dimensional. You can't just rely on Quorum and Edwards to move the ball for you. You need to be able to sling the ball around if you want any hope of your offense keeping you in this game. On the defensive side of the ball, um, just you're not going to stop this Alabama offense, but you need to slow them down. You need to get a couple stops here and there. If any defense is capable of it, I believe Michigan is. But we've, as much as I've said this in the past, it's really rang true in my eyes during bowl season. Big Ten defenses are, known as some of the best. They're always ranked so high in the country. They play some of the worst offenses in the country every week too. So Michigan's defense really needs to step up, take the lessons from last year when TCU kind of torched you on the edges a little bit, and learn from that and improve from that. Looking at Alabama, Milrow needs to again. He's really transcended the second half of the season here. He needs to keep that performance up. He can't revert back to that first half performance. When he struggled, he had a lot of interceptions, just didn't look comfortable. He's looked very comfortable the past couple weeks, made a lot of really great plays, somehow got his name into the Heisman conversation. The second half of the season there, everybody's watching out for him next year, but he just needs to play his game, play the way that he's played the second half of the season, and just continue to find ways to be comfortable. Michigan's going to bring a lot of pressure. They like to send a lot of blitzes. Just keep your composure, find the open holes, and he can use his legs very well. and that's I think what's helped him a lot too. So just continue to do that. Um, and on the defensive side of the ball, keep them one dimensional, and especially if um, they want to rely heavily on the run. I think Alabama has a very good rush defense. If you can limit Michigan's rush game and force them to throw it more, and McCarthy can't get comfortable if you're sending a lot of pressure, a lot of blitzes, this can get very ugly for Michigan very quick. Looking at that key for them, just force them to want to run the ball, or just straight up stop the run, force them to throw the ball, and so on. Time for the picks. Nick, Slade, and I'm going to give you Nick and Slade's picks at the same time. They're both going with Alabama, and I'm going to go with Alabama here too. Um, there, the rumors have kicked up again about Harbaugh possibly leaving for the NFL. He's allegedly got this agent now. Pete Thamel leaked that yesterday. Um, but in my eyes, it's very hard to see this being the year that Harbaugh gets that monkey off his back, gets a playoff win. As much as we ragged on Alabama to start the season, the way that they've turned around the second half and they look better week over week over week, outside of stumbling against Auburn in a rivalry game on the road, I think Alabama is definitely putting their name up there for best team in the country right now. And this is going to be a very dangerous game for Michigan. They need a lot to go their way. I'm very surprised that they were favored in this game. And again, if they can't get out of the one-dimensional phase, which with as good as Alabama's defense is, I don't know if they can. And so that's my main concern. And so with that, I'm going to go with Alabama to win this game. Flipping over to the second playoff game that we have tonight, we have Texas versus Washington, 8:45 on ESPN. Keys to the game for this one, looking at Texas first. You need to find a way to slow down this Washington pass offense. They have a great 1-2 punch offense, but the reason I'm saying you need to slow down their pass offense um, is because I believe that's where their strength is. They have three NFL caliber wide receivers. Michael Penix, obviously an NFL caliber quarterback. As somebody that had to watch their defensive secondary get torched twice this year by Washington, this is really the key to their offense. Their run game can get bogged down at times, but they really rely heavily on this pass offense to move the ball, make big plays, and get them huge chunks of yards at a time. Dunes is really the one that I can't even say that you really need to key on him because the second you do, McMillan's wide open, and so on and so forth. They have an entire roster of NFL wide receivers, and that's why you can't stop this pass offense. But if you can slow it down, make a couple big plays, and again get them in uncomfortable situations, maybe make Penix have one or two bad throws, get you one or two extra possessions there. That I think that can be a huge key for the defense. On the offensive side of the ball, just don't turn it over. Texas has done a very good job of that in the second half of the season. Ewers has really developed in that aspect as well. And again, going back to the Oregon game, both of them games that Oregon should have won, they found ways to give the ball away or not convert on fourth downs and hand Washington extra possessions, let them make a couple huge scoring plays. If I'm Texas, don't give them those extra opportunities. Don't let them get extraordinarily good field position with bad fourth down play calls or going for it on fourth down in bad situations, and absolutely do not turn the ball over. Looking to Washington on the offense, just continue to do what you've done all season. Yeah, you had some games where it sputtered here and there, but this offense has found ways to come through in the biggest moments that they faced. Again, Oregon twice, the Oregon State game, Washington State, when they got put in tough situations, the offense found ways. Don't try and get fancy. Don't try and get cute. Just play your style of offense. Continue to do what you've done best all season. Again, you have this very talented wide receiver core. Spread it around, and that's what they do best. Their run game, again, one of the best in the country. Penix, I feel like, is going to have to use his legs tonight. So just be safe with that. Make sure you're taking slides, no unnecessary dives, don't make unnecessary contact, trying to get an extra yard here or there. Because if he goes down, that is the hugest hog in this machine. And so they need to keep him upright. And if he does use his legs, which I feel like he will need to in this game, protect yourself more than anything. On the defense, um, force Texas to run the ball. Try and take away those passing options. Again, try and force Texas to be a one-dimensional offense, and if you can do that, that's half the battle. I don't think Texas's run game is as strong as it's been in the past couple of years, and their star running back is out. He left the season earlier with an injury. So again, if you can force the most or the more um, the lesser aspect of this Texas offense to have to carry a bigger load, you're definitely going to force them to struggle, and it can help out your team as a whole. This I feel like is going to be the better game of the two in my eyes. I'm excited to watch this later. For our picks, Nick and Slade are both going to go with Texas. I still have to get a Texas tattoo regardless. But for me, I don't want to root for Washington, but I think they're going to win this game. Watching them up close so much this season, this is just a very, very good football team all around. DeBoer is one of the best head coaches in college football. He's obviously won some awards for that already this year. But this is a well-oiled machine. He takes the diamonds in the rough and really shapes them and creates fantastic players out of them. Uh, you know, Watching recruiting side by side with how Oregon does and how Washington does, Washington's not pulling in, top 5 classes, top 10 classes. I don't even think they're in the top 25 this year. Um, but what the board does best, and this is why he was so good at Fresno State, is, he takes those players that, they might not be a 5-star, they might be a fringe 4-star, but he brings them in and he develops that talent like nobody else. And that's what makes him so good. Also, that's what makes Washington so good. Um, and just the depth that Washington has, I think, is what helps them overcome Texas in this game. So I'm going to take the Huskies to win this one. That'll do it for this episode of Out of the Tunnel. Thank you guys so much for spending your Monday morning with me. Again, Happy New Year. We will be back before the College Football National Championship next Monday. So make sure you guys join us there as well. Thursday morning, we will release another episode of Blitz Boys, where we're going to break down the College Football Playoff semifinals, talk about a bunch of other things that have happened the past couple weeks as well. So make sure you guys check that out, and we will see you guys in the next video.